Alrighty, let's rewind. Okay, so today, why don't you move? Wait a minute. Okay, all right. So today we will be talking about imperative form. And imperative form is the kind of form that uh, requests or tells directly people to act. Now, in English, we don't really have a specific form to give a command. We just say the verb, and in a certain phrasing and in a certain context, it is understood as a command. Like, for example, do it now, or tell me the truth, or play better. The verbs that I just gave in the examples, they are commands. But in Russian, we have to, in order for them to be commands, we have to convert them to the imperative form. And we will be converting them into one of the two forms, which is the formal and the informal. So these are general guidelines because there are exceptions. But with the verbs ending on at, for the informal, we will take away the ending and we will replace it with I. And to make it formal, to make the command formal or request formal, we we will make it IT. So for example, we know the verb делать, which means to be doing. So then to ask someone to do something, to either command them or politely request them, depending on the context and all the other words that we will say around it, we will say делай, делай. And to address a group of people or to address one person formally, we will say делайте, делайте. I forgot to include the accent here, but in all three of these words, it's on the first syllable. So делать becomes either делай when we're speaking to one person informally, or it becomes делайте when we're speaking to one person formally or to more than one person. Another verb that we know is знать, which means to be knowing. And if we want to tell somebody, let's say, know this, so it becomes like a command. To one person, informally, we would say знай, знай. And when speaking to a group of people or one person formally, we would say знайте, знайте. So I hope you see how this conversion works for the verbs ending in at. Though I want to say again that there are exceptions, and we will go over them as well. Now, for the verbs ending in it or it, for them, we will take away the ending and replace it either with e or ite. So, for example, one of the verbs that we know that ends on it is говорить, which means to be speaking or to be talking. So, when we are addressing one person, we would say говори, говори. But when we're addressing one person formally, or when we are addressing several people, we would say говорите, говорите. Another verb that we know that fits into this construct is смотреть, which means to be watching. So when addressing one person, we would say смотри. Addressing one person informally, I should say, we would say смотри. But when addressing one person formally or several people, we would say смотрите. Смотрите. Now, as I said before, those are general guidelines. There are exceptions or just verbs in some other forms that we know um, that don't follow those conversions. Let me give you some examples. The verb идти, which means to go, becomes иди or идите. The verb сказать, which is a in the perfect form, and it means to either have said, or to have told, becomes скажи, скажи, or скажите, скажите. The verb есть, which means to be eating, becomes ешь, ешь. So when we're telling one person to eat informally, we would say ешь. And when we're telling one person to eat formally, or several people to eat, we would say ешьте, ешьте. Пить, which means to be drinking, becomes either пей, пей, or пейте, пейте. I think you've probably noticed by now that one thing that does not change is the fact that we are adding te at the end when we are addressing several people or we are addressing one person formally. That I don't think ever changes. Now, the verb ждать, see, now clearly this is an exception because we would think that, which means, by the way, to be waiting, we would think that it would be ждай and ждайте, but that's incorrect. Such words in Russian do not exist. Instead, ждать becomes жди. Жди. For example, if I want to tell someone to wait for me here, I would say informally, жди меня тут. Or if I'm addressing multiple people or one person formally, I would say ждите меня тут. We have быть, which means to be, but the imperative of that becomes будь. Будь for one person informally, or будьте. Будьте for either one person formally or for more than one person. Now, if you're wondering how can I ever use the verb be in an imperative form, we actually use it a lot. We just don't think about it. Like maybe you want to tell somebody to be stronger. The word for stronger in Russian is сильней. So if I'm telling one person to be stronger, I can say будь сильней. All right, now, with all that being said, what do you think these examples mean, given that быстрее means faster? Иди быстрее means go faster. We're addressing one person informally, right? Now, what do you think this sentence means? Не пейте слишком много. Do not drink too much. And we are either addressing one person formally or we're addressing several people. We can't really tell based on this sentence, but we can tell that we're not addressing one person informally. Now, notice what's taking place here is negation also. Negation can apply to the imperative form, just as it can apply to other forms. So if we want to tell somebody to not drink, as we did in this case, it becomes не пейте. We're just putting the не, which is the negation, in front of the imperative form of the verb. Now, what do you think this means right here, this sentence? It means, tell me one more time, please, or say to me one more time, please. And we're addressing one person informally. Now, what do you think this sentence means? Let me give you a hint. Nas is the, I believe, accusative case for us. It says, wait for us here. And we are addressing one person informally. So I hope you see how these imperative forms can be transformed into making request or command sentences. I want to take a moment to talk about this verb right here. It deserves its own special slide because it is so common. Давать literally means to be giving. It's an imperative form of give. By contrast, dать is to have given. Now, why is it so common? Is it because Russians are so giving? No, that's not why. It is because it is also used in the same way that let's or let us is used in English. And I'll show you what I mean in the following examples. But the good news is that давать follows the general guideline for converting to imperative form. Давать becomes давай or давайте. Давайте, depending on whether you're addressing one person informally or one person formally or several people. All right, so here now, when we can know that давать is intended as let's, when it immediately is followed by a verb, though it's not always going to be followed by a verb when it's understood in that way. But I would say basically anytime it's not followed by something that can actually literally be given, it should be understood as let's. So for example, the first sentence here is let's play soccer. Давай играть в футбол. The verb the word football is European word for soccer, as you probably know. And here we are addressing one person informally, and we're telling them, hey, let's play soccer. Now, the verb can follow either in its indefinite form or in its future form. Давай будем играть в футбол. Now, what is будем? Будем is the verb to be agreed to first person plural. So, in other words, we. So what it says is literally is let's we play soccer. These two sentences are basically equivalent. Давай играть в футбол and давай будем играть в футбол are there's hardly ever a situation where they cannot replace each other. Now, what do you think this means? Давайте я буду ждать вас тут. As a reminder, вас is um, the object pronoun form of you. This sentence, the best translation into English probably is, let's have me wait for you here. Literally, word by word, it is, I will wait for you here. But we don't talk like that in English. We don't say, I will wait for you. We say, let's have me wait for you, or let me wait for you. Um, but this is how we can suggest a whole sentence. The sentence is, I will wait for you here, and I am suggesting it by adding the imperative form of давать in front of it. In this case, it's давайте, so it means I'm either addressing one person formally or several people. Давайте, я буду ждать вас тут. All right, now we get to the fun stuff. So, from polite to most disrespectful. I would say the most polite way, like the most polite way to ask somebody is to put the question into a conditional form. Now, we haven't studied a conditional form yet, but let's just know that it exists, and it uses the word be after the verb, which is in the past form, in the past tense. Anyway, we're not going to get into the conditional right now. Let's just know that it exists, and it can be used as a very polite way to ask someone for some sort of a favor. The next, also very polite and very socially acceptable, is either to put the verb, in this case, сказать, in the imperative form, formal imperative form, and pair it up with please, пожалуйста. Скажите, пожалуйста. That's a very, very respectful and polite way to ask someone to tell you something. You're basically saying сказать, which means to have said or to have told. So you're telling somebody to tell you something or to say something to you. Now, equally polite is to ask, can you tell me? In the Now this is done here without the imperative, but it is kind of on the same level of politeness in terms of requesting. So here you're addressing somebody formally, and you are asking them, and you're even negating your question. So it's like saying, "Can't you tell me?" You're basically saying in a formal way. By the way, this was also in a formal way, because when we're speaking to somebody, politely, unless it's a person we know really well, it's going to be in a formal. Next is a direct question. So we're phrasing our request in a form of a question, and we're not negating it, and but we're still in the formal, and we're asking, can you say or can you tell? It's still considered quite polite to do that. Вы можете сказать, is what it says here. Next is the form that we have just been studying, which is the imperative form. So imperative formal. Скажите. Скажите, где там, So now, tell me, say where, Now, this is already pretty direct. It's pretty direct, and it doesn't have all these bells and whistles around it. So, you're basically telling somebody what to do. It's already kind of not especially polite, and could be in some settings could be already kind of crossing the line from polite to offensive. The next, the next is direct. The next step toward disrespectful is the imperative informal. So we're telling somebody what to do, and we're saying it in an informal form. Скажи, in this case, if we keep working with the verb сказать, we're saying скажи. And now finally, this is the fun part, the past tense informal. So what we're doing here is we're putting the verb into the past tense, and we are agreeing it to the gender of somebody we're addressing, or the plurality if we're addressing several people. But because this is a very rude way, a pretty rude way of telling somebody what to do, it will almost never be formal. So if we're putting it in a formal form, it's because we're addressing several people. It's never going to be because we're addressing one person, because it's kind of like contradictory to be rude to somebody you're addressing formally. Although maybe there are social situations where that makes sense. And it's usually preceded by some kind of a time parameter or some kind of other parameter, but usually it's a time parameter because we're rushing that person. So very often the word preceding will be the word быстро, which means quickly. And так in this case can be um, translated as okay or so. Так, быстро сказал. Okay, quickly said is literally verbatim what this means. And again, this is not a complete sentence, or though it can be. Like let's say we're trying to get somebody to tell us something, and they're kind of hesitating, they don't want to cooperate, and we're kind of losing our patience with them. And in this situation, we can say "Так, быстро сказал," which literally means okay, quickly said. And it of course implies not that the person has already said it, but that we're commanding them to say it, and we are saying it in the past tense. We're stating what we want them to do in the past tense. Um, so that's the hierarchy from polite to most disrespectful. Now, of course, to be even more disrespectful, you can spice it up with some cuss words and so on. We're not gonna study that here, but as far as the grammar goes, that's how you would say it. All right. So knowing all that, and knowing that сказать is to say or to have said or to have told, how would you informally tell someone, tell me where they are? And one more reminder, in Russian, when we tell someone, we tell to someone. So you make sure to be using the correct form of pronoun me. Tell me where they are. Скажи мне, где они. Скажи мне, где они. Скажи мне, где они. Now, when in Russian, when we give someone, we give to someone. So give me, to give me would be дать мне, to have given. Let's use the perfect form of the verb to give here. The word for enough is достаточно. Достаточно. And in place of more here, let's use еще. Еще. Now, knowing all that, how would you say, it's not enough, give me more, informally? Это недостаточно. Дай мне еще. Это недостаточно. Дай мне еще. In place of by, let's use the preposition до. До. And as a reminder, to have something done is сделать. Сделать. Now, knowing all that, how would you say, please have it done by tomorrow? And this is formal. Пожалуйста, сделайте это до завтра. Now, if I'm reading this word all by itself, it would be до завтра. But when I'll say it quickly, you'll see that this до will probably become да, because the words will be smudged. Пожалуйста, сделайте это до завтра. Is how this will sound in a normal live conversation. The word for louder is громче. Громче. How would you formally request, please speak louder? Пожалуйста, говорите громче. Пожалуйста, говорите громче. Пожалуйста, говорите громче. In place of again, let's use больше, which literally means more. Больше. And for the most natural word order, let's arrange our reply like this. More like this don't do. I hope you remember how to say like this. Don't do this again is what we're really translating. Don't do this again. Больше так не делай. Больше так не делай. Больше так не делай. I hope you remembered that так, while sometimes it can mean so, it can also mean like this or like that. Again, when we tell something to someone in Russian, we tell it to them. In English, we can tell to someone, or we can tell someone, but in Russian, we have no choice. We tell to someone, so therefore we have to use the appropriate pronoun. And if you don't remember how to say too much, it means it would be, or rather, if you don't remember how to say too, as in excessive, as in denoting excess, it's going to be слишком. Слишком. So knowing all that, oh, and one more thing. In place of tell, here let's use говорить. Говорить. So how would you say, don't tell him too much? And this is informal. Не говори ему слишком много. Не говори ему слишком много is how it would sound at real-time conversation. To be listening is слушать. Слушать. Now, while in English we listen to someone, in Russian we listen someone. So you will be using a pronoun that is not a dative case pronoun. I hope that gives you a hint to what it should be. The whole sentence is, listen to me, you need to work more. And this is informal. Слушай меня, тебе нужно работать больше. Слушай меня, тебе нужно работать больше. At real-time speed, слушай меня, тебе нужно работать больше. One of the words for movie is кино. Кино. So how would you say, let's watch a movie informally? Давай смотреть кино. If you said давай будем смотреть кино, that is just as acceptable. At real-time conversational speed, давай смотреть кино. Or давай будем смотреть кино. We are addressing several people here, and we are saying, let's speak Russian. Давайте говорить по-русски. Давайте говорить по-русски. We are again addressing several people, and we're saying, let's do it together. Давайте делать это вместе. Давайте делать это вместе. If you said давайте будем делать это вместе, that is just as fine. All right, now this is the part where we get to be rude. And as a reminder, we have to put the verb into the past tense, where of course the grammar rules apply. It has to correspond to the plurality or gender of the person we are addressing. The word for truth is pravda. Pravda. And to have told the truth is сказать правду. Сказать правду. So how would you rudely order somebody who is male, Quickly tell me the truth. Быстро сказал мне правду. Быстро сказал мне правду. Быстро сказал мне правду. Now we know that the word for now is сейчас. But if we want to emphasize the sort of like the urgency, or just the just like the just like it's exactly now. In English, we would say right now as opposed to now, but in Russian, one of the ways of saying it is сейчас же. We're adding a little же to the end of сейчас. Сейчас же. Instead of, in place of is needed, let's use надо. Надо. And to phrase our sentence in the most natural way, phrase it like this. Because as I said before, usually this rude command is preceded by some sort of a time parameter. So phrase it like this. Right now, have it done how needed. And the sentence we're translating is, have it done how it is needed right now. And we are addressing informally a female. Сейчас же сделала как надо. Сейчас же сделала как надо. Сейчас же сделала как надо. And here's a request that hope you will never have to hear on the street somewhere. We are rudely addressing a male, and we're telling him, quickly, give me all the money. Now, in English, when we give something, we give it either to someone or we give it someone. Let me think. Yeah, we can give it to someone or we can give it someone. Like, for example, give mom your keys or something, or give to mom your keys. We can say it either way. In Russian, we don't have a choice. We give to someone. Quickly, give me all the money. Быстро дал мне все деньги. Быстро дал мне все деньги. Быстро дал мне все деньги. And this is our last slide. I hope you had as much fun practicing as I did making this video.